This video is about the cQ-Baseline DATR BBands indicator. This is basically a moving average with an envelope and some Bollinger Bands. And when the Bollinger Bands are outside the envelope and price is above both of those, you can see it will put a blue dot in the up direction and an orange dot in the down direction. This is very similar to having your volume indicator on the baseline, or you could look at it as just a filter that will help you filter out some of the wrong trade entry points. It actually has two modes. You can change the mode right here. With this mode, what it allows is price has to be above the entry, which are these green lines, and the exit, which are the red ones. The red ones are the envelope, and the green ones are the Bollinger Bands. So the Bollinger Bands have to be above or below the envelopes, and price has to be close above in order to get a dot. These red dots are if the high to low of the candle is greater than 2 times the ATR, and you can change that value, then it'll print a red dot. It's called Atr Limit. It's enabled. You can use the high to low or the close to close. Or just leave it high to low, and it has where it'll just do it one time. Right now it's on continue, which I'll show you what that does in a second. Right now the period is set at 50. You set it whatever you want, and you can change the multiplier value. These X's, it'll give you an exit signal if price goes above or below the baseline. So for example, let's get, like here you have an entry. Here it went below the baseline. It closed below the baseline, for example. Same thing here, closed below the baseline. You can then go, say, or you can go down here when price closes, or when price goes above or below the baseline, which it'll give you an exit signal right here. And if you're doing an expert advisor, it's you look at, for the exit, you look at buffer 14. If it wants you to exit a trade, it will print a 1, and most of the time zeros come out. But when it says to exit, because you can also have an entry and an exit on the same candle. And if you have this thing set to price, these down here, then this will change. It won't be on the close. It's going to send it. It won't send it on the exact close of the candle. It's going to send it whenever that happens, so that you can actually, if you did set it that way, you could get out when it crosses this line. And then there's when it closes above below the trend envelope, which is really this exit one in the direction of the trend. I know it sounds confusing, but if it closes below, which it closed here, right at this line right here, then it'll exit at this point. And then the one that goes the opposite trend envelope, it's just going to close at the opposite side, the opposite direction. So down here, it will close. And then, if you want it, you can also have it close on the trend entry, which again is the green one, which gets you out pretty quick right here. If you have a good move, you can do it, but that's kind of a fast one. And then obviously the other one is get you out on the opposite entry down here. So again, that's with the price. You can do the same thing. It has to close. It will generate an exit on the close. The other thing, you have a number of moving average types that you can choose from, and this will change. As you can see, this only changes the moving average. If you go down here, this is what the B bands are calculated. the actual volatility part of it. You can use a different moving average and a different, so you want 20. Here, we'll move this back to this, well, make it a little more understandable. Say we're going to set it to 10, and then you can set the actual Bollinger Bands, or the bands, to be calculated at 20, for example. And that's what that looks like. So up here on this band calculation mode, normal mode is just the normal way it's calculated. I also have a thing where it just uses the IBand function that's inside MT4, which really is set at simple moving average. So if you go here and you start trying to change this, it won't change because you're in this IBand function mode. And then alt is a slightly different way of calculating the volatility part of it. And then this one uses the ATR to calculate the bands. And you can, down here is where you change the deviation, and on the entry, these envelopes, you can enable or disable them if you want. If you don't want to use them, you don't have to. If you enable them, this is where, for example, you can have it change the value. Here you can change like the exit, which is the red one. Well, if you move this like to 1, you'll see that it changes on how sensitive, I guess, your entry levels will be. It's pretty versatile. You can do a lot of things. Again, that's just, we're using this particular mode. Price has to close above the entry, the green band, and the green band has to be above the envelope in order to generate a dot. If you go to this entry line ones, it's a little different. So we got to put this to 1, and we'll put this to. It's just a slightly different way of looking at it. And this is how I would start. If you wanted to use this mode, I would set this ATR exit multiplier to somewhere around there, and the entry to just set it to 1, just to get an approximation. And again, you can change the periods, which will give you another ball game. That's just a lot of different ways of doing it. So again, you can change the colors and stuff like that. Once you get it all set and you don't want to see all the stuff, you just want to see the dots, for example, you can do that. And if you don't like if you want them to be one color, kind of thin, and get this, so it's not, can do something like that, which is a bit more easy to see, where the dots are occurring and stuff like that. And then these are just, the various parameters for the moving average. And of course you have this this one is the DTR version. And actually I did both of them, and they're not as different as I thought they would be. There is some difference, especially depending on the period and the type of moving average. You will see some difference in calculation. For example, I do have, let me delete this one. I have this other one, which is just the normal baseline B-bands, and it's not using the DTR, the directional ATR. It's not using that as an input. It's just using price as an input. So, and they're relatively actually pretty close. But since I did both of them, I'll put them both in the zip file, and you can try whichever one. But they're close, pretty close. And this, for example, these are just a few. This is a new one I'm doing, or I've done. I'm gonna put it out soon. It's an oscillator TDFI, which, and then this is a DTR volatility, which basically helps to match up these kinds of things. This is volume. I would say this is volume related. It's a filter based on volatility. So, but as you can see, here's the red dots. This is the this is the continuation of the red dots. For example, when you go down here, continue. If you just want one time, that's what it'll do. Is it'll just, that candle is over 2 times the ATR, but these aren't. But sometimes, you can just try it for, to test your system, and then still need to have an exit indicator, or if you did want to use these this type of thing, stick it on a expert advisor and see what results you get. Certain ones it works really well, and there are an unlimited number of settings that you could actually probably have most of this stuff not even showing up at all. It depends on, you're just going to have to go through and find a good setting. The settings the default settings are just that, I have no idea what actually will work for your system. You can make it filter out a lot of the stuff and only try and narrow it down to, just the bulk of the move or a good portion of a good move, and try and filter out all this other stuff. But in essence, I guess that's what this indicator does.